Hey there, welcome back to the channel. We all know that caffeine can affect our sleep and can keep us up at night, and I'm a little surprised at myself that we haven't discussed caffeine yet on this channel. So today we are going to fix that by giving a brief overview of how caffeine affects our sleep and also how late we can have caffeine before bed. Hey everyone, my name is Matthew and welcome to Calm Insomniac, where we're a community of people trying to get a better night's sleep. If you enjoy learning about sleep health, sleep tips, and relaxing classical music, then please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Let's start with the basics by asking a very simple question. What is caffeine? Caffeine is a naturally occurring substance. It has a bitter taste and is commonly found in plants such as coffee beans, tea leaves, cacao, and cola nuts, which are used to flavor a lot of sodas. Caffeine can also be synthetic or man-made. Synthetic caffeine is often found in over-the-counter medicines such as cold remedies and pain relievers. Synthetic caffeine can also be found in products such as energy drinks or caffeine chewing gums. According to one study, 90% of Americans consume caffeine-infused beverages daily. Additionally, another study found that most people underreport their daily intake of caffeine. Now, this underreporting is done unintentionally because most people don't realize or forget just how many products contain caffeine. Most people associate caffeine with coffee, but caffeine is found in all kinds of products. Tea, iced tea, chocolate, hot chocolate, candy bars, soda, those all contain caffeine. 1 cup of coffee, which is 125 milliliters, contains at most 100 milligrams of caffeine. And most people self-report that they consume 100 to 500 milligrams of caffeine a day, so about 1 to 5 cups of coffee. But like I said, most people forget or don't realize just how much caffeine they're actually consuming. So researchers have found that these self-reporters are actually consuming anywhere between 154 to 1,285 milligrams of caffeine a day. So this can be problematic because people don't realize just how much caffeine they're consuming every day, and furthermore, most people's tolerance for caffeine is much higher than they realize. Now that we know what caffeine is, the next logical question is, how does caffeine affect our body? Caffeine is a stimulant. A stimulant is a substance which raises the levels of physiological or nervous activity in the body. In this case, we're mostly talking about our central nervous system. Specifically, caffeine achieves this by the way it reacts with our adenosine receptors. So let's go ahead and break this down. Adenosine is an organic compound found in our cells and central nervous system which help transfer energy. And receptors are structures made of protein that bind with special molecules. So when adenosine binds with a receptor, we begin to feel sleepy because this causes our neural activity to slow down. One of the reasons this happens is because adenosine is a vasodilator, meaning it dilates or opens our blood vessels, which allows for proper oxygenation during sleep. But when we consume caffeine, this process is interrupted. Instead, caffeine binds to adenosine's receptors, and this doesn't cause our neural activity to slow down. This means that adenosine has far fewer receptors available to bind to, so instead our neural activity begins to speed up. So think of adenosine as the brakes and caffeine as the accelerator. And when our neural activity increases, this causes our pituitary gland to activate. The pituitary gland releases hormones which signal the adrenal glands to release adrenaline, which is responsible for our fight or flight response. So all these processes keep us in an alert state, increase our awareness, and provides extra energy to our entire system. So now that we know what caffeine is and how it affects us, let's specifically address how caffeine affects our sleep. I know we're all very aware that caffeine keeps us up at night and prevents us from getting a good night's sleep, but let's dive into this a little bit more specifically. Studies have shown that consuming caffeine in close proximity to bedtime increases sleep latency and decreases total sleep time. So this just means it takes us longer to fall asleep, and the total amount of time we're asleep is lessened. Additionally, studies have shown that when we consume caffeine close to bedtime, the amount of time we spend in deep sleep is decreased. But here's one of the biggest problems with consuming caffeine in close proximity to bedtime. When consumed as a beverage, caffeine is absorbed into our body through our gastrointestinal tract and quickly reaches peak effectiveness within 30 to 75 minutes. However, it takes 3 to 7 hours, or sometimes longer, for our body to completely eliminate the caffeine from our system. And since we often don't realize just how much caffeine we're consuming throughout the day, this problem compounds. So let's say, for example, that you drink 3 cups of coffee a day, with your first one at 9 a.m., the second one at noon, and your final cup at 2 p.m. With each new cup of coffee, there's a good chance that the previous cup's caffeine is still in your system and has not been completely eliminated. Now let's say that when you get home for dinner, you like to eat a chocolate bar as your dessert, and then when you're relaxing before bed, you like to drink a cup of tea. By the time you've gone to bed, there is still quite a bit of caffeine still in your system that hasn't been eliminated yet. One final problem with consuming caffeine too close to bedtime is that caffeine is a diuretic, and a diuretic helps release excess salt and water from our body through urination. So if you drink too much caffeine before bed, there's a good chance you'll be up all night because you constantly need to use the bathroom. So with all that in consideration, how late in the day can we have caffeine before bed? There's a general consensus that caffeine shouldn't be consumed too late in the day, and this is especially true for caffeine-infused beverages. But specific recommendations vary among research studies. Some research studies suggest having caffeine no later than 6 hours prior to bed. Other studies suggest having caffeine no later than 10 hours before bed. And even other studies suggest specific times of day, such as no later than noon or no later than 2 p.m. What's clear is that caffeine ideally shouldn't be consumed later than the early afternoon. So this is unfortunate for anyone who enjoys drinking a cup of tea before bed or who likes having a cup of coffee with dessert. Regardless, you have to make a personal choice. Consider your own tolerance for caffeine, and consider how caffeine affects your body and how it potentially affects your sleep. And if it does interfere with your sleep, then you should be willing to make an adjustment. There we go. That is an overview for how caffeine affects our sleep and how late we can have caffeine before bed. This is a topic I'm going to continue to discuss, and in fact, in one of my next videos, I'm going to discuss further how caffeine affects our sleep, as well as how caffeine affects our daytime functioning and the coffee cycle. So if you aren't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe so you get notified about that immediately. Let me know in the comments down below, how much caffeine do you think you consume in the day, and how late in the day is your last cup of coffee? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook and Pinterest, check out my website, and join my email list. All of those links are down below. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about sleep health, then I suggest you check out this playlist right over here. And if you missed my recent video where I discuss how to fall back asleep when you wake up in the middle of the night, then check out this video right over here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.